Right, that's it everyone. After Liam Lawson's P6 this weekend, let's swap them back over and put Liam back in that Red Bull car. He fully deserves it, as he's definitely got his confidence back in the car. And Yuki, his confidence is shot. For his well-being, we need to put him back in that RB car. And you know what? If you are a fan of Yuki Tsunoda, I agree with that. I am a fan of Yuki Tsunoda. I want him to do well. However, what I did just say was very reactionary. That is not me, unlike a lot on social media, as obviously the questions are continuing to be asked, as it has done since the beginning of time around that second Red Bull seat. Should that driver who is occupying it at the time, whether it's Perez, whether it's Gasly, Albon, Lawson, Tsunoda, should they be replaced? And the answer is no. It's a flat out no, because all Yuki has done is just prove exactly what we already knew. That second seat is a poison chalice. Now, Christian Horner will disagree, of course, for obvious reasons. He's not going to admit that that second car is undrivable. However, he has been quoted as saying the car is a car that's evolved over the years around a development path that we've taken. It isn't an easy car to drive. It isn't easy, is it? He didn't say that, but it's not that difficult either. So he's obviously going to stick up for his engineering team and the team as a whole. He's not going to belittle the driver, of course, to an extent, but he's also not going to praise a driver for failing to make it out of Q1 and also getting lapped twice in the race at their home circuit. But there's no undenying factor that that car has always been very difficult to drive, and it's becoming even more difficult to drive this season, as we're starting to see in even Max Verstappen's hands. Who knows where he would have qualified, of course, if he didn't get held up by Pierre Gasly in Q3, but even so, he was struggling throughout the weekend. So often we've seen him struggle on the Friday and then turn it around on the Saturday, but even then, he was complaining he's just got no grip everywhere. Now, sometimes you take those comments from Max with a pinch of salt, because, yeah, when the car isn't to his liking, he can be overreactionary. I think we can't really, I think you can all agree with that, as a lot of drivers are with how the car is feeling. But yeah, his lap times were not looking good in qualifying, they weren't looking good in practice, and over the last few weekends, the Red Bull has been nowhere near the fight for the race win. Now, Canada is the exception to that, but Canada's a very unique circuit. I mean, hell, Mercedes were the car that were best, and then they ended up finishing a whole minute behind McLaren at the Red Bull Ring. So yeah, it's just getting worse, that car, and in being so, that second seat is becoming even more of a poison chalice. Now, as I said at the start, should Liam Lawson be promoted back to the Red Bull seat? No, absolutely not, because that man's confidence was shot. I think it was inexcusable to drop a driver after 2 races, no matter who that individual is, whether you support them or not. That's not enough of a data point and of an opportunity for a driver to get on top of a difficult car, let alone a car that it sounds like, and I'm sure Yuki is probably going through the similar thing at the moment, where they are tinkering with it so much that there's no chance to get any form of consistency out of it or any form of confidence. Liam, at the start of the season, he had a different rear wing almost every practice session, or at least every race. I know it's only 2 of them. And then he had a different setup from every session. How are you supposed to build confidence in that? You may already be very twitchy and not comfortable in the car, but at least keep some baseline platform, you know, like keep it consistent so that they can build upon that and fill maybe the car and work with it from session to session, so then they know what areas to particularly improve on, rather than just tinkering here and there. And Yuki, we know why he's in that seat. A lot of people will argue, of course, he should have been in there at the start of the season. I can't disagree with that, but I also think it was also the right decision to give Liam Lawson an opportunity. I think he'd proven himself in the circumstances, and thankfully it has taken him a long time, of course, and I've said this. People have compared him, understandably, to Isaac Hadjar. He's always going to be compared to his teammate first. That's the driver you need to be. However, Liam Lawson's mental attitude and his mentality after what had happened at the start of the season and those circumstances, he was not riding a high at all. Like, Isaac Hadjar is riding a massive high. He's come into that team he's easily going to, and always was going to, outperform Liam Lawson. And it's now looks like, after the last couple of races, Lawson has started to become and found some confidence and some performance with that. And he's been a bit unfortunate with some DRS issues, some kind of like failures in qualifying from the car itself, and some poor positioning from the team out on track, and he should have qualified higher, which has affected his race results. But Spain was a good one. He got screwed over there pretty much with the late safety car, and the team didn't put him on a new set of tyres or a softer set of tyres, similar to like the Max situation really, except he was on considerably used tyres, and he just got absolutely swallowed up by the field with the safety car restart. Otherwise he would have scored points there. And then since then he's been backing it up with some good performances, topped off with the Red Bull Ring here, where he qualified really well, had that set back down to P9. Thank God Kimi Antonelli didn't cause him any more damage. He did touch his car, they banged wheels, he lost 3 positions because of that, but then regained them throughout the race. With finally, RB have made a good strategy call. They left him out on, and they gave him a one-stop strategy, and well, he made it work. That's the rest of the job was down to him out on track. He made it work. He held off Fernando Alonso, and yeah, they were the only 2 drivers who did a one-stop, and they both scored points. Brilliant driving from both of those. But if you are a Yuki fan, I do think, or wherever you're a fan of, I think you do want them in that RB seat right now. I think if you're a Yuki fan, you want him to go back down to the RB seat, because look how confident he was at the start of this season. Arguably should be on 20 more points than he's currently on at the moment if it wasn't for poor strategy decisions at the start of the season. He was always the fastest car out of the top 4 teams, wasn't he? Comfortable, hence why he got that promotion plus a bit of cash from Honda. But if you're a Liam Lawson fan, you want him to stay where he is, build that confidence back up. And this is it, isn't it? It's just that second seat is a poison chalice. There's been talk about Hadjar being promoted up into it as well. And you want them to stay where they are at the moment, because I do think 2026 is the perfect year to want that second Red Bull seat, because it's a brand new set of regulations. 2026 is a blank slate for everyone. No one knows what's going to happen. The regulations are still up in the air. I haven't really paid too much attention to it, because nothing still seems to have been finalised with it, even though we're 6 months, 8 months away from the new season of 2026 getting underway that season. But it's the perfect time to go into where there's a clean slate, where potentially as well, their lead driver Max Verstappen might not even be there for the start of the new set of regulations, of course, with the rumours and floating around of Mercedes still going after him. And I can't imagine Max is very happy behind the scenes at the moment with the performance of the Red Bull. He's a championship winner. He wants to be winning races week in, week out. At bare minimum, he wants to be fighting for race wins. He doesn't want to be fighting in the midfield. No, he's a 4-time world champion. That's what he wants to be doing. He's going to move to a team, whether it be Mercedes, whether it be Aston Martin, that can potentially provide him that. And in the new regs, no one knows what's going to happen. So for Isaac Hadjar, Liam Lawson, Yuki even, next season is where it's at. But could Yuki just completely destroy his career with this Red Bull move? Now, always said, it's a win-win for Yuki to an extent. However, recency bias is very, unfortunately, a real thing, especially in F1, and people will completely forget how good of a driver Yuki is and how well he started this season in that RB car. Because if he continues the rest of this season without getting any sort of results, then he is going to be without a Red Bull seat going into 2026, which means he will be out of a seat for the new regs, because every seat is pretty much wrapped up at the moment. Now, contracts are contracts. They're not always binding, shall we say. People could be bought out of contracts. It's the same if George Russell became available. I'm sure there'll be teams up and down the grid who have solidified their lineup for 2026, who would happily buy out their current driver's contract to sign a caliber driver like George Russell. Maybe that'll be the case for Yuki. However, George is a multiple Grand Prix race winner. Yuki isn't. So would someone be willing to do that for Yuki if that situation arose where he's out of that seat for next year, which I am not so confident he's going to be in F1 next year. primarily, we know that Red Bull promoted Yuki because of the timing and the money that was thrown at them, an extra 10 million for the trouble of promoting Yuki into that Red Bull seat. And at the time, I don't agree with it. Of course, Japan is earlier in the year. It was, you get this 10 million now so that we can put Yuki in for Suzuka, his home race. If Suzuka wasn't that home race, I think Lawson may have, and that early on in the season, I think Lawson probably would have been maintained in that seat. So the timing of it was unfortunate, but in the long run, maybe Lawson will look back at that and go, yeah, that worked out very well for me. It was terrible to go through at the time, but in the long run, if he continues these performances and continues this form that he's had recently to the end of the season, it could be a blessing in disguise for him. And next year, yeah, maybe get promoted back up to Red Bull, or at least make himself look more favourable at retaining that RB seats, with Lindblad waiting in the wings, who's very highly rated and performing well in F2, or to other teams up and down the grid, as we know that, yeah, there is always the possibility of shift arounds and driver changes mid-season. But yeah, for Yuki, it's going to be a long season. I think he's in that car to the end of the year. I don't think there's any way that Red Bull risk. They know definitely internally within themselves that that car isn't going to get better, and the situation in that second seat isn't going to get better. It's not worth it bringing through one of their younger drivers who they're trying to develop, Lawson, Hadjar, Lindblad, and ruin them in that second seat than a pay driver like Yuki. And unfortunately, that is what Yuki is, and I think that's where he finds himself in. So he needs to try and keep his head high. But if you are a Yuki fan, you would love him to get demoted and removed out of that Red Bull seat as quick as possible, so that he can perform much better in a much more stable RB car. So yeah, strange times at Red Bull. Intriguing to see what is going to happen. Could we be witnessing the team that dominated this set of regulations, that were, I think, the best team all round in world sports for those years? They were faultless throughout every single department of Formula One. Their operations side, performance side, design side, like, it was just perfect, pinpoint. And now, could we be seeing the complete unraveling of that team? And well, if they lose Max and they get off to a very poor start with their partnership with Ford, and them now creating their own engines for 2026, I mean, yeah, it's not going to look good for them whatsoever. And what a turnaround that will be. Something that maybe we've not seen in the sport for quite some time.